Can we focus on how we can reconcile with God with form and God without form?
Indeed, it's a very interesting exploration. Let's start the journey saying that all world cultures, not even religious, all world cultures, in order to understand reality and come to terms with the world that they faced, had a habit of conjuring up ideas of gods in the heaven or gods in the skies. Every civilization. For example, in the Western European civilization, you see the idea of paganism, looking at nature to try and resolve your condition. In the Greek civilization, you got the ideas of gods related to the sun god, the sea god, etc. So, and in Hindu tradition also, we had this idea of Indra and Agni and Varun. So we all were trying, the earliest ideas of God were really trying to personify the forces of nature so that we can build relationship with nature. And one of the biggest problems ancient human beings had was rain. So, for example, in the Central American republics, you see this idea that if the rain fail, they will offer not only animal sacrifice to please the god of rain, they would in fact, pull out the heart of a living human being and offer it to this ultimate, this god as a rain god to get rain. So this kind of thing used to happen throughout all world civilizations, including Hinduism. So we also had Agni and Vayu and Varun and Indra and so on as different forms of gods that we kind of in a way kind of in charge of forces of nature. This is how it started. This is how the journey started. But in no time, this journey actually in India especially moved on. So this idea of, for example, appeasing Indra to get rain, that was standard practice in the Vedic times. Suddenly we see with the story of Krishna something very interesting. People don't realize this Govardhan Puja that we do is in fact the first transition from the idea of God as supreme personality giving us rain called Indra to the idea of empowering human beings. This is the story of Govardhan mountain. Because what happened is this story, this is colorful storytelling. They said Indra was not pleased with the people in Vrindavan because they were not anymore, worshipping him to get rain. So Indra got very angry. He said, I'll throw thunderbolts and rain and drown all the people in Vrindavan. And of course, Krishna said, don't worry, I'll lift the mountain. This is mythological part of the story. And I'll lift the mountain and all of you support me. Stand on your own feet and fight Indra. Stand up against the idea of Indra. So you see the transition of gods as forces of nature personified as Indra, Vayu, Varun, Agni being seen in the story of Krishna. Trying to shift emphasis not on these forces of nature, but on human beings who sort themselves out. This is the beginning of the journey. So initially, all civilizations personify the forces of nature and appease them. Then we see the transition. And for example, in the European civilization, we had the paganistic idea, means worshipping nature. Again, the same idea. And then we had the Christian, kind of enforcement. Thereby, the paganism was pushed aside, and we had Christianity implanted with the idea of God in the heaven as a father figure. Now, in the Hindu tradition, it's a very interesting journey. And one of my friends, Trevor Maku, said, "Please, Mr. Haqqani, explore this. Such an exciting and interesting subject to explore. So let's explore it." So initially, the forces of nature being worshipped, and slowly we said, "No, that doesn't seem right." So we're kind of focusing on human beings who sort themselves out. Wonderful idea. You see the transition. So not a God in heaven. But the thing is this. So let me just give you a really kind of detailed way of how Hindus classify the idea of ultimate reality. There are three ways they decided. One is called Nirgun Nirakar. This is the principle-oriented Hinduism that was discovered through the ideas of Kapil, saying our essential nature is different from the world that we encounter. So the idea of Atman and Brahman is considered, both these ideas are considered to be Nirgun, Nirakar. They don't have any attributes whatsoever and they don't have any shape. No shape, no attributes. The very depth of Hindu philosophy started with Kapil. So this idea of looking at our own essential nature as a principle, not as a personality, is the beginning of Nirgun Nirakar Brahman, the idea that is one of the best, kind of most philosophically oriented vision of Hinduism. This is called esoteric Hinduism. And the reason why I'm introducing is this. This is the only way we can relate to serious philosophic challenge that we face. So I'll hang on to this idea of Nirgun Nirakar and then move on. Then we had the idea, in the Vedic period, especially Dayananda Saraswati promoted this idea, the idea of think of ultimate reality without form, so no kind of Indra, Krishna, nobody, without form, but with attributes like Satya is the nature of truth. So the second transition was Nirakar, no shape, but with gun, sagun, with qualities and attributes. Now if you look at it, this is not very different from the Christian idea. Because the Christian idea also said we don't like to focus on these imageries and all that. We like to think God like, if you like, a compassionate person, a truthful person, an all-powerful personality without giving a shape. So they don't like to really give a shape, even though they're calling the Father in heaven. So the Abrahamic tradition also focused on the idea of Sagun, but Nirakar, no images. So this is again visible in the Hindu tradition with, say, Arya Samaj and the Brahmo Samaj. They focus on the idea of Sagun, but Nirakar, God, ultimate reality. But then the Hindus are very greedy. They like to think of God in many different ways. We love to explore this idea of spirituality. We are masters at it. So then the third idea that we kind of in a way embrace is the idea of Sagun Sakar Ishwar. So this is Brahman idea, Nirgun Nirakar Brahman, but that's kind of boring. How do you relate to it? No attributes, no qualities, no shape, no form. How do you relate to it? They say we turn the system on its head. Think of Brahman with Sagun and Sakar, both with attributes and with shape. So this is a complete transition. Why do we do that? And it's important for us to recognize why. Not because we vilify it. Human beings have great difficulty in relating to subtle ideas regarding spirituality. And Nirgun Nirakar Brahman may be philosophically very satisfying. Oh, I can take on the challenge of Richard Dawkins. But for a common man, it is impossible, almost impossible to relate to the idea of Nirgun Nirakar Brahman. They've heard about it, they see it in the scripture. They can't relate to it. There's no handle. So for an ordinary human being, for a man on the street, the only way they can relate to the idea of spirituality was Sagun Sakar. So this is the third vision. And modern Hindus, majority of modern Hindus relate to Sagun Sakar. So the Sagun Sakar is idea of God with attributes and with shapes. And what shape? Variety of shapes, because we in a way kind of fashion the way we like to think of ultimate reality. So we give different names and forms. So we can think of ultimate reality as Vishnu, as Shiva, as Mother Goddess, as Durga, whatever. So we in a way relate to the ultimate reality using variety of different names and forms, not polytheism, pluralism, many ways to relate to ultimate reality as a personality. This is the way majority Hindus and majority people in the world basically can relate to the idea of religion or being spiritual, because you require this kind of form to hang on to and worship and build relationship with it. And I say, Mr. Lakhani, okay, you've given us three variations of idea of concept of God in Hinduism: Nirgun Nirakar, Nirakar but Sagun, and Sagun Sakar. Fine, nice Sanskrit terms, but how can all be true? Come on, reconcile. It's like a very jagged enterprise and very kind of, in a way, enterprise that is not well reconciled. So let me try and reconcile it for you. Now, you see, the thing that is in a way percolating through our system, looking out through these eyes, is actually, according to the highest Hindu philosophy, it is actually Nirgun Nirakar. But when it manifests in the human form, it begins to show certain attributes. What are the attributes that we see in all living things, all human beings? Things like compassion, things like trying to be knowledgeable, trying to make sense of the world that we live in. And third is being empowered. We don't like to be pushed about, the sign of a living thing. Not on the forces of nature. It wants to harness the forces of nature and sit above them. This is the sign of a living thing. So being empowered. So in a way, these are in a way showing the spiritual underpinning to us, is in a way revealing itself is these human attributes. Compassion, knowledgeable, empowerment. So far so good. Now, this is the magic trick we did. We said, in order for this thing that we already possess to become much more enhanced in our own lives, being more compassionate, more truthful, more, kind of empowered, let us now project this concept on some external being. It is within us, but it's very difficult to catch what is within you. Oh, what is me? So we took these ideas of compassion, knowledgeable, empowerment, and we multiplied it not 10 times, not 100 times, infinitely. So ideas that we are already showing our spiritual underpinning, we exaggerated them to infinite, and we plonked it on that fellow called Vishnu or Shiva. You are all powerful, all compassionate, all knowledgeable. Wow, 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 wow. So what did we do? What was already there, in a way, trickling out of our system, we exaggerated it and plonked it on this external being called God, Sagun Sakar God. See, all the attributes that we love, we plonked it on him. And we give him the shape that we like. Oh, I love Shiva. Oh, I love Vishnu. Good for you. So we gave it different shapes, but the attributes were the same. All powerful, all knowing, all compassionate. And sounds so straightforward. Why do we do this? Why does it work? That's the most important. Why is this so engaging? You see, in a way, if I say, try and become more compassionate, you say, oh, okay, Boy Scout movement. But I say, no, see, this Vishnu is all compassionate. We say, we relate to the idea of Vishnu and the stories of Vishnu or stories of Krishna and Ram. We love this idea. So by, in a way, projecting this idea which are already within on an external God, we can then build relationship with this external God. So suppose I love Ram, and Ram was always truthful and kept his word. And by focusing on Ram and by focusing on his particular aspiration, we try and embrace the same aspiration and engage them in our own lives, thereby becoming like Ram. So in a way, by projecting this external God and trying to build relationship, we want to become like them, becoming more empowered, more compassionate, more knowledgeable. So this is why we, just think, project it outward and then build relationship with it. That process of building relationship with this ultimate reality as a supreme personality makes us more spiritual. See, this is the trick that we use. We didn't think, oh, sit down, let's use a trick. This just happened naturally. This is how Hinduism unfolded. So we started building relationship with all this. How do we build relationship? We of course show tremendous love. So that means we love these aspirations of all knowledgeable, all compassionate. So we show this kind of aspiration by saying devotion to this ultimate reality as a great super personality. In a way, this answers one of the questions that was posed. Why do we have all these gods and goddesses with either 3 eyes, Shiva, or 4 heads, Brahma, or Mother Goddess with 16 arms carrying all the weapons? Why do we have so many arms and heads and eyes and what? Because we are trying to, in a way, project the idea of somebody who is not just human, but who is superhuman. See, all these exaggerated features must become visible. So we know he's not just an ordinary person. Oh, yahoo, he's 16 arms. So in a way to engage with our idea that we are dealing with a superhuman, we give these exaggerated features to these gods and goddesses. Nothing wrong. Provided you understand why we did it and why it is so useful and why is it something that is digestible and accessible to make us spiritual, you value it. So for example, when I see a devout Hindu worshipping Hanuman or Ganesh, I straightway see the depth. He is trying to become spiritual by focusing on the great aspiration that this particular deity is famous for or kind of well known for. So this is how we in a way become more spiritually enlightened by in a way focusing on a external being, a supreme personality who is in a way in a way kind of relating to the ideas that we already possess, the aspiration that we have. This is a wonderful way. Why is it so important? Why do I went through all these things? They all have different strengths and different weaknesses. Nirgun Nirakar, very difficult to relate to. How do you relate to it? Tell me. And yet Nirgun Nirakar is the only way Hinduism can respond to serious challenges that we face in the world today. Serious philosophic challenges. Like the second question there was, why does God create disaster? Now, if you believe in an ultimate reality, super personality, of course he should not create disaster of poor human beings being crushed, tsunami. How dare he do that? So poor God is in trouble straight away. But you focus on the principle-oriented Hinduism, esoteric Hinduism, Nirgun Nirakar. Underpinning is Nirgun Nirakar. Doesn't have things like compassion of human beings. It's just a principle that when it manifests, creates this world, the physical world and the living things, it pays a price. Things have a habit of hitting each other. Things have a habit of falling on top of each other. So you can't blame a God, yes, how dare you do the tsunami? When this Brahman expresses itself, it has to play ball with the material world that it in a way manufactures. That is how we can address serious philosophic challenge by focusing on Nirgun Nirakar. And yet at a human level, Sagun Sakar is highly, highly attractive. Majority human being, look, even though I talk high philosophy or quantum physics, when I think of Sri Ramakrishna, I'm gone. He's a personality, with 2 arms and all that. So personality in a way allows us to engage with spirituality in a much more intense, much more personal, much more accessible and digestible manner. So please value all of them. They all have their own values.